Hey Laura, good morning.
Good morning, JJ.
So I know we're headed out to Boston for the IAPP AI conference.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
looking
so,
forward to that.
yeah, it's going to be cool. Super relevant, I guess, this week. We're going to talk about the AI executive order. Who knows, maybe in timed for the conference. So I wanted to get, Laura, your initial thoughts on it, what you thought was cool, what wasn't.
Yeah, well, this is certainly an executive order with just a ton of ambition. The White House organized the executive order around a number of guiding principles and priorities, including ensuring safety and security, promoting innovation and competition, advancing equity and civil rights, protecting privacy and civil liberty, with specific concerns around fake content generated by AI, and instructing the Department of Commerce to use guidance for the use of data content authentication tools and practices, including specifically labeling synthetic content through the use of watermarking, among other tools.
I thought that was interesting as well,
Yeah.
Laura. I heard watermarking a lot, and it seems to be some kind of obsession with watermarking. So this idea of if it's AI, we're going to watermark it, you're going to know it's coming from AI. And then the other type of content is authentic content. So like the non-AI generated is authentic. What does that mean for AI content? Where do you think they're going with that?
I think it's a really interesting question. As a consumer protection lawyer, it's something that we talk to our clients about, the consumer experience, ensuring that consumers are not deceived when they're interacting with your business. When you introduce AI, the question is, what is the consumer experience there? Certainly, providing transparency is really important so that a consumer understands whether it's in the context of a chatbot or President Biden and everything in between. But the question for me is it necessary to provide that watermark? Then will a consumer be deceived if you don't? I think that the motive here is certainly well-intentioned to provide consumers with information that they need, but it may result in some information overload. We're going to have to see what happens.
You mentioned consumer privacy. I was wondering if the executive order itself could have been more specific on privacy rights. They seem to do that outside of the executive order with a call for bipartisan federal legislation and with a call for consumer privacy protection. But when you read the executive order itself, seemed kind of light. How do we read into that?
Well, the president is constrained by existing law in what he can direct his agencies to do. I'm not surprised by that. I am also not surprised that in the fact sheet, he called on Congress to enact privacy legislation.
The other thing I loved about Laura is just directing some of these departments to build best practices, to build standards like NIST and others. But also, one other thing I wanted to ask you is, you saw in there, hey, FTC, you should go and look at deceptive conduct in this area. And I'm like, well, they are doing that. And maybe some of the others like the Department of Labor and HHS to kind of go forward as well. Certainly with the FTC, if you recall, Bedoya at the IAPP conference in April was saying we're going to enforce the same dusty old laws, in his words, and we're going to go after deceptive and misleading practices. So in this executive order, when they double down on that, what does that mean? How do we interpret that?
Well, the agencies are constrained to enforce the laws that they have jurisdiction to enforce. And so the Federal Trade Commission, where I focus my practice, has the Federal Trade Commission Act and other statutes that it enforces. Certainly, it has made plain that it will enforce the statutes that it has the authority to do so in this space, both through Commissioner Bedoya's speech and in other public venues. Seeing the White House direct the FTC, executive agencies, the FCC, another independent agency, to do so isn't necessarily surprising. Any White House would want to have its priorities outlined and then directing independent agencies to take certain action. There are different schools of thought about the extent to which the White House should be directing an independent agency to take any action, but the FTC and the FCC have their statutes and can enforce them as they see fit.
That's a really interesting insight, Laura. So it brings me to my last question for you. I read the executive order and I'm understanding now after talking to you the limits of what the White House can do. So I was going to say, hey, we should applaud this first step, but I was wondering if it goes far enough. But it sounds like it goes as far as maybe they could have gone with the tools available. Is that a fair assessment of it?
Yeah, I think that in talking with practitioners over the course of the last couple of days, that the assessment is that it goes really far, that this is an unbelievably ambitious executive order. Is there room at the margins to have taken a little bit more? Maybe, but the White House did, I think, more than practitioners were anticipating. So this is ambitious. The White House is putting its flag in the ground about what it expects both of government agencies and as model of industry. And we're going to wait to see what the Department of Commerce does in terms of standard setting, and that will provide important guidance for industry going forward.
Awesome. Laura, thank you. I feel like I could talk to you about this forever. I appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to talking some more about it in Boston. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come up, right? We'll see. We'll see. All right. Have a good one.
You too.